Welcome back to our generic crafting tutorial series. In this episode, we're going to be adding our inventory widget onto the screen and getting all of the items in the player's inventory populated into that widget. So the first thing I need to do is make another input action here. So we're going to go over to input action called IA inventory. Or you can do whatever you want, IA pause menu or something like that. But we're just going to make this a digital bool and the trigger is just going to be pressed. And we're going to add that to our iMac default. Add a new mapping. IA inventory. I definitely spelled that wrong. And our key is going to be I, or whatever key you want to put here. We don't need to modify it. So just when we press the I key, the inventory, the item action is going to, the action is going to trigger. So I need some way to trigger that action inside of my player. So I'm going to grab my input action inventory. And this is going to just call our player controller and tell our player controller to make a widget for us. So we're going to do that here in just a moment. Let's open up our player controller. Now let's make a custom event called create or display inventory widget. This is going to be pretty much the same as all of our other widgets have been so far. We're going to make sure we have the local player controller. We're going to see if the widget's valid, and we're going to display it on the screen. But first I want to actually make the widget. That way I have something to save. So we're going to UI. And since this is going to be very, very similar to crafting, I'm just going to duplicate crafting and call this W_inventory. And we're going to go through and clean this up in just a minute. We'll just open it up and save it. That way we have a reference to it. We can pull this up to the screen. So display inventory widget, again, we're just going to take these, make sure it's always a local player controller. We're going to check and see if the widget we're about to create is valid. So W inventory, owning player self. Promote that to a variable, W inventory. Oops, not defaults, widgets. Drag that out in here. Drag that out in here. So just like we did with our crafting widget, we have this setup crafting widget. We're going to need to do something similar with our inventory widget. But we don't actually need to do as much heavy logic inside of this inventory widget as we did inside of the crafting widget, right? We don't need to do quite as much logic. So instead of having this be set up crafting widget, we're going to call this reset widget. And that's just going to take the player. We don't need reset state and we don't need crafting state. Again, we're going to come through here and delete most of this stuff in just a minute. Like all of this stuff. But for now, I just want to get this widget just inside of the player controller to be able to do what it needs to do. We're going to call reset widget. That's again going to take in this player ref. And that player ref needs to be passed all the way through. And we are going to add it to the player screen. And we are going to set the UI mode. Just like we did last time, this is going to stop us from being able to continue to run forward when this pops up on our screen. And just like we did with the remove crafting widget, we need to run all this stuff from the player controller. That way we are always re-enabling all of the things that need to be re-enabled. So I'm going to say custom event, remove inventory widget. And we're going to run all that stuff with the inventory widget instead of the crafting. That's all we need to do here. Now back inside of our player, we can grab our PC custom here and say display inventory widget when this is triggered, and make sure we pass ourselves through to the player. Ugh. And I'm actually going to grab my character movement Whoops. It's easier if I just drag out the movement component. And we're going to stop active movement. And this is just to make sure that, like, if we're already running forward, we're going to stop immediately. We're not going to keep having the momentum going forward. So, yeah, that's broken, so we can't actually test it out. Let's remove that pin. That way we can actually just get this displayed on the screen. So when I press play, I'm running along here, I press I, it stops my movement, it adds it to the screen. So inside of our W inventory, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into our, our quit button. And instead of calling remove crafting widget, I'm just going to delete that. We're going to remove inventory widget. And I'm not actually going to call iTrigger save here because we haven't done anything that needs to be saved, or I'm not sure if we've done anything that needs to be saved. So when we use and equip items, we're going to trigger that save every time we use or equip an item. And we're not going to be doing equipment here today, but that is something that is going to happen inside of this inventory widget. Okay, so in our inventory widgets designer, we're going to remove a few things here, right? This no longer needs to be a variable, and this can just be title, and we can just call this inventory. Now, if you want to have it a variable that gives you all of your slots or how many slots you have available, whatever you want to do here, that's totally up to you. I'm just going to call this inventory and make it static. We no longer need this enhance button, so we can get rid of that. That's a filter that we don't need. We also don't need this available button, right? This is a filter that is no longer needed in here. But we're going to need another button to replace it, so I'm just going to rename this button. I'm going to rename this materials. And we're going to make sure the text here says materials. Same thing with refine. Refine isn't going to be the refinement anymore. It's actually going to be consumables. But yeah, we already have a consumables button. So we're just going to delete that consumables button. We're going to take this widget switcher. We're going to right click. We're going to replace with child because we no longer need that widget switch in here. And now, if I compile save first, we can call this consumables. Yes, I'm aware. So we're going to come over here. We're going to rename quit crafting to quit inventory. That way that quits the inventory instead of crafting. Over here on the right hand side, we actually still are going to need these, but these are going to be for the equipment slot and not the item required. So we're going to rename this equipment slot 01, or you can call it something better if you want, like primary weapon or main hand. We're going to call this, actually, we're going to reduce the size, call slot main hand. This one over here is going to be slot offhand. And we're not actually setting up the equipment in this episode, so these are all going to be blank for a little while. But I do want them to be ready to go and made for me. So we have our slot helmet, or slot head, whatever you want to call it. Or slot chest, or whatever you want to call it. Guards and legs. Slot guards or arms, whatever you want to call it. Slot legs or boots, whatever, not boots. Slot legs or shins, whatever you want to call that. I'll take this whole box and duplicate it 2 more times. Because we are going to have slot boots or feet, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to have slot neck. And then this bottom one is just going to be slot ring 1 and slot ring 2. And if you want, you can add some spacers in there. I think we are going to go ahead and add some spacies in there. So I'm going to control copy that spacer since I'm about to get rid of that box. Take that, put it in item requirements, duplicate it a few times, get some space in between these. sure that there's a spacer in between each one. There it is. And we're going to call this, instead of item requirements, equipment. Same thing with the border element. Instead of border element requirements, we're going to call that border element equipment. Totally up to you whether you're even using borders or not. For the most part, this item details is going to be exactly the same. I think the only thing we really don't need here is success chance, because we're not enhancing, so we can just remove success chance. So we have our description. We don't need result either. We still have our item type. So instead of craft, I'm just going to call these item. So item type. Come up here. That should actually be centered. Item name. Item level for the enhancement level. Yes. Item type. We'll center that up. And item description instead of craft description. I probably misspelled that. And yeah, that should be good. Basically, just whatever readout details you want when you inspect your item are going to go in here. And all of the equipment values are going to go in here when we equip our items. We no longer need this crafting amount unless you want to have some way to use multiple items at the same time. Like maybe you have 10 health potions and you want the player to be able to use 4 or 5 health potions. That's going to be something that's totally up to you to do. But I'm just going to delete this. If you want to use more than 1 health potion, just click the button more than once. Our button for our craft, we actually need to duplicate this because we need 2 buttons in here. And I'm going to wrap these with a container because I kind of don't like how they are. So we're going to wrap these with a vertical box. And we're going to put that one in there. And we're going to say fill. That way it's a little bit smaller here. We're going to copy one of those spacers and put him in here as well. That way it looks a little bit better. I think it looks a little bit better anyway. We no longer need this to say craft button text. This is going to be removed, and this is going to be equip. And this is actually going to be a variable, so we're going to make sure we call it text block equip. Because if we are using a consumable item, this is going to become use instead of equip. This button here is going to be equip, use, or whatever you want to call it, just so you know that this button is going to function as the use button and as the equip button. And craft is going to become discard. That way we can remove items from our inventory. We can just drop entire stacks. So text block discard. Let's call this discard. Okay. So now that we have all that set up, that is actually going to be our inventory UI here. So I know it was a little weird, but we just copy pasted the whole crafting UI just to kind of speed up the process a little bit. We don't have to make all these containers and do all the spacers again. Everything's going to look the same as however you set it up inside of your crafting. We just removed what we did not need any longer. And now you're going to have 50 billion errors, so we are going to go through and start removing all of those errors. So again, you just want to go through and pretty much delete everything that is pertinent to delete. So that was this entire increase, decrease amounts, since I'm not using that. This craft result block, we're not using. This craft result block, we're not using. And that means we no longer need this, which is connected to this, which is connected to this, which is connected to this. And delete all that. And plug this into the output. Because we are still going to need a lot of this logic here. Which is why, again, I just duplicated the whole menu. Which we're actually, I just realized we're going to have to go through and clean up that crafting menu as well. Populate enhancements, this entire function can be gone. All can also be gone, we no longer need all. So filter all is gone. All is going to do something totally different now. take consumables, switch that. And while I'm here on all of these buttons, we're just going to switch this to material, equipment, consumable, and none. That's just all going to go right into this filter craftables, which we're going to rename to something else. Delete enhancement. We can totally delete enhancement. We can also probably delete this craft button text. I'm actually going to use that maybe for the crafting stuff. Delete levels enabled. Crafting level, we don't need. Crafting type, we don't need. We don't need enhancement tiles. I'm going to rename this inventory tiles. Enhanced target, we don't need. Amount can craft, we don't need. Course can use, we don't need. Amount to craft, we don't need. We are going to keep filter state and player inventory. If you want to keep capacity, if you want to read out for how many slots your player has available, you go ahead and keep that. I'll keep it for now, just in case I do want it. Set craft button text. Yeah, I don't need that. Enhanced chance, I don't need. Max cores, I don't need. Probability, roll success, we don't need any of this. Compile again, we're going to have some more errors. Roll success, check enchantment. Delete all that, or enhancement. I don't know why I call it enchantment. Delete all of that stuff. That way we are no longer having errors. So let's focus on probably the most important thing first. Actually, let's just start hammering these out one by one. Our filter states, since we were already kind of doing these, is just when we click the buttons for the filters, we just need to set the filter state and filter craftables. We don't need this, and we're going to call this filter inventory instead of filter craftables now. And that should change the call function here to filter inventory. We'll take our scroll box crafting list, which we actually need to rename that to inventory list. Clear it out. Take our inventory tiles, run through the for each, and get the item inventory. We no longer need can craft. Okay, we no longer need can craft. We're just going to run through all of these things and say, yeah, we do still need the type, and we still need the filter state. Say if the filter state equals none, we no longer need levels, we no longer need this, we no longer need that or that. So basically for the filter, we're just going to take the item info, get the item type from the ID, and see if it's equal to the filter state, or if the filter state equals none, we're going to go ahead and just add it to the scroll box. Well, much simpler here. Just deleting a lot of the excess logic and trying to make sure we don't delete anything we actually need. Totally up to you whether or not you try to remake this whole thing, but I don't want to be here for 12 hours trying to remake the whole thing. So those are our filter events. Much simpler, right? Much easier to manage. Compile, save that for our filter states. Again, we already updated quit to just remove. We no longer need to create all crafting tiles, so we can delete the event construct completely. And now we're going to run our setup. So instead of doing a big sequence here, we don't need to do most of this. So we're going to run this, and we're going to say I get player inventory. And we're going to go ahead and set the values. So we're also going to actually clear focus as well when we run this. But I'll do that after I do this. And we're not going to need pretty much any of this, so I'll just move it up there for now. Let's set our player inventory, set our player capacity. And again, if you want currency to read out here, you could have your currency value. I didn't even do capacity in anything in my project, so we probably won't do much with this. But this would basically be to add a little text block somewhere inside of your UI that says player can hold X amount of items. Totally up to you whether you use that or not. And then I'm going to run a sequence. I'm going to take my scroll box here, take my scroller for inventory list, and get that. I'm going to clear it out. And I'm also going to clear all my tiles. So I'm going to take all my inventory tiles, and I'm going to clear them out as well. Then I'm going to run through and I'm going to make, or remake, I should say, all of the tiles that we need. And we're going to do this every time we reset the widget, because if the player discards an item or equips an item or does pretty much anything at all in here, uses an item, it's going to change their inventory value. So we need to get a fresh inventory value and refresh all of the tiles to make sure that we're getting valid stuff here. Okay? So take our player inventory and run that through a for each. And for each of these, we are going to create the item tile. So we'll just we'll just actually create item tile, widget, item tile, type item tile, parent widget's going to be self. I'm going to take our inventory tiles now and edit. We don't necessarily need this array of inventory tiles here either, but if you decide you want to save when you're done with the inventory or something like that, instead of saving every time you do anything and rebuilding this every time you do anything, then you'll want to have your local inventory values here basically get fed back into the player, and you'll want to do that via the inventory tiles. I'm going to add a child, and that child is going to be this widget. So now it's going to populate the inventory list with all of our valid inventory tiles. Okay, that's our then 1 or then 0 here. And let's make sure we actually add clear focus before we do that. That way we are always clearing whatever tile was in focus and resetting the values appropriately. Our then 2 is going to run a special custom event that we haven't made, and we're not going to make in this episode, but I'm just going to make the placeholder here. And it's called refresh equipment. So we want to refresh our equipment. And again, we're going to make this in a different episode. I'm not going to make it here today, so we'll put it over here. You can also delete all this now. We don't need it anymore. We're just going to put that over there for now, and we're going to make that in a different episode when we actually start doing our equipment, because we'll need to have items equipped for this to actually do stuff and work. And then we're going to filter our inventory, and this is going to keep the filter state active. So if you used a potion and you're still in the consumables filter, it's going to go ahead and filter back to whatever your current filter state is. So just a little extra there that I add in for kind of ease of use. And that is our reset widget, right? Nice and simple. Much easier than the crafting widget was. Remove that over here because we're done with it. So the next thing we need to do here is set our focus tile. Equip use, we're going to pull this over here because we're not going to be doing that for a little while. And we're going to set our focus tile. And this is honestly kind of almost the same. Basically, we're just going to be setting up all of the values when we click a focus tile. Pretty much the same as the equipment was, or not, yeah, pretty much the same as the crafting was. We need to get the focus tile, see if it's valid. If it's not valid, we need to go ahead and reset everything. So let's make sure we restore our default values properly. Just going to be here. We don't actually have set enhanced check text. This is just going to clear everything out. And we don't want to clear our equipment main hand. We don't want to clear our equipment slots at all. Just these primary core values. So the item name, the item description, the item level, and the item type. That's all we really need to clear here. So I'm not going to keep this collapsed. I'm just going to Control X that, and we're just going to paste it up here. That way it's not collapsed, because we're not really doing too much. Those are the 4 core values. Set up text details. This is going to be the item name, description, item level, and item type. Whoop. So we're going to paste that in here, and we're going to make another one of those. And we're going to do that. And we're going to come over here, and we're going to take the item ID, get item type. And we want some way to get this as text, so we could do a select and have these as text. But there might be multiple places in the game that I'm going to do this, so we're actually going to make a custom event, just like get item description in item. And this is going to be get item type as text. So get item type as text. So you can either run that selector through this data table here. You could say get item type and then select text based on that. I'm going to take that. That's going to be a return value of string. That's going to be as text. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to pass in my item ID. So we're going to go for e item type, or I'm just going to pass in the item type, I should say. And we're going to say in type. So instead of getting the data table row, I'm just going to get this type out here, and I'm just going to return it as text. Totally up to you whether you want to get it from the data table or just make sure you already have it. Since I already have a getter for type, I'm just going to pass the getter for type into the getter for text. And we're going to say NA or none. And we're just really typing out all these things here. And this is just purely cosmetic so that we have a proper readout value. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. So I'm going to get item type and get as text. I'm going to pass that right into the item type. So again, not much changed here. We're still setting the item name to the item name. We're still setting the description to the description. And we're still setting the item level to the item level. Okay. That is these 4 core text blocks up here. Again, we're not worried about inventory yet. We're going to do that in a separate episode. So our set text details is pretty much the same. We no longer need to do this. So we no longer need this items required to craft, this for loop, set required items, or setup amounts can craft. But we do need to run some logic to see what the button is doing and whether or not the button is going to be enabled. Okay. So we need to get out our button equip here, and our text block equip, and button equip use. For the text block, we're going to be setting the text. And for the button, we're going to be doing 2 things. We're going to set enabled. And I'm actually going to set the visibility when I disable it to just completely remove it. Totally up to you if you want to do this or not, but it's something that I like to do. That way, even if the button's disabled, it just doesn't exist. And that's what we're going to be doing here after we set up all those text details. So whether the button is enabled or not is going to depend on some values. Give me just a second to... So we're going to take our item ID and we are going to get the item type. And basically we need to check and see what type of item this is, right? So if the item type equals material or consumable, so we're going to do 2 equals here, 1 for material and 1 for consumable. Whoops. If it equals materials or consumables, or I'm sorry, oh, we're going to get and see if it is equipment or consumables. There was another check I did inside of set text details that checks to see what exact slot the equipment goes into. And maybe we'll set that up when we do set text details or when we actually do equipment. But for now, we just want to see if it's equipment or consumable. And if it's an equipment or consumable, then the text block for the button for use is going to be enabled. And the visibility is going to be true. If it is not equipment or consumable, right, that means it is material or none, then there's no way for us to actually use that in the game. So true. Visible, false, hidden. That way our button is just not visible or enabled if it is not equipment or consumables. And here we need to select text. Again, based on whichever one this happens to be. So let's just do consumable. So if we route out a consumable, we're going to select text. So it's going to be use item And B is going to also check and see if it's also going to be a selector that's going to check and see if it is equipment. And that way it'll say equip item. And again, when we get into equipment at another date, in another episode, we will go through and define this a little bit more. So we'll define the equipment type, and we'll be putting all of that information in. But for now, we don't actually need that, and I don't want this video to be 10 hours on stuff we won't be seeing for potentially 5 or 6 more episodes. So for now, we'll just set the text, and if it is equipment, we'll set it to equip item. And if it is not equipment, we'll set it to use item. And if it's nothing, it'll just not be empty. I mean, we won't be able to see it anyway, so it's not a big deal. And that is all we're going to do for our setup here. Again, pretty similar, just much lighter than the whole process was before. If you wanted to, on your reset, you could go ahead and re-enable these buttons and set their visibility. I'm not going to do that. If it just happened to be disabled, then it's fine. It can just not be there until we set a new focus tile and actually need it to be visible. So our button equip use, technically, again, we're not actually doing anything with that right now. And that is going to be fairly different from what happens with what we did in our crafting. So I'm just going to delete all this, and we're not going to worry about it until we actually get equipable and usable items in. But there is one thing I want to do here, and that is deal with discard, since we're always able to discard items. So we're going to have our on-clicked event for discard. Now when we discard an item, we want to get our focus tile here. And we want to make sure it's valid, so is valid. We're going to get the item info. And if you want to print something here and say not a valid item tile, that's totally fine. But we need to do something with our player. Okay, we need another input event here to actually get rid of the item. And this isn't going to be for removing the item. This is going to be for completely dropping a stack of an item. So we're going to do that real quick. It doesn't take too long, don't worry. Our BPI items inside of inventory. Just like iCraft item, we're going to say iDrop item. And that's going to take the item, so inventory info. And that's going to be item to drop. I'm not going to let players select an amount of an item to drop. If you want to do that, you're going to have all those buttons in there, and you're going to have a bunch of complicated logic on how many you can drop. So when the player tries to drop an item, I'm just going to call iDrop item, and we're just going to drop the entire stack. Okay? So you're going to have to handle that however you want, but for me, that is just how I'm going to handle it. And then we're going to call it clear focus. That way we clear the focus. Well, we don't actually need to call clear focus because we're going to be calling reset widget, which is going to call clear focus inside of itself anyway. So we're just going to take our player and we're going to call for reset widget. We'll just make iDrop item, save the inventory status. Or if you wanted to, you could say iDrop item, and if you wanted to save in here, you could delay until the next tick, and then call for save inventory. You know, we'll just do it here. You can call it for it here, or you can call for it when you drop the item. Totally up to you where you call for it. You're just going to make sure that you're actually saving before you reset this widget. Otherwise, the inventory will come through. And that's all for here. So this is just going to be drops an entire stack of an item. So whenever I select the item, we're going to drop the entire stack of it. So let's go ahead and work out that logic real quick. Inside of our player, iDrop item. And this is going to be pretty simple. We're going to get our AC inventory here. And we're going to make a custom function inside of this called drop item. That's going to be in the remove item category. So drop item. I'm going to put that in remove item to keep it nice and clean. Drop item is going to take in the inventory info as a parameter. So this is going to be item to drop, or drop item, whatever you want to call it. We're going to once again find exact item index because we want to make sure that we are getting the exact item to drop out of here. If we have two different swords and one has an enhancement level of 5, one has an enhancement level of 10, we want to make sure that we're dropping the exact item in question, not the level 10 when we drop 5, not the level 5 when we drop 10. A bit of an edge case, but that's just kind of how it is. Check and see if this index is equal to -1. This should not happen, but this is again, our fallback check. If we did not find the item, then it's going to be -1. If you remember correctly, we made local index -1 by default. So if we did not find the item, that is going to come up as -1, and that is bad. We don't want that. We're going to add an event log of something like cannot find item to drop. So cannot find item to drop, because that is bad. We can't do anything. We don't actually have that item in our inventory. Something happened here. And if we do have that item in our inventory, we're going to take our inventory content and we are going to remove index. And again, if you're doing like an amount of dropped items, that's something you're going to want to do. You're going to want to not drop item. You're going to want to remove from inventory and do all that instead. And then we're also going to have another branch here to unequip the item, but since we're not doing anything with that yet, I will just leave it here, because we're going to want to see if item is equipped, and we're going to want to unequip the item. So I'm going to leave a comment on that saying needs unequip item. Needs unequip item. Again, that way it can properly save. And that's why I actually called save in here and not inside of my inventory component, because from here I'm going to get valid save game ref, and I'm going to call a custom event here called save all player inventory, but we don't need to do that right now, so we'll just say save all inventory values, because we don't even have equipment yet, so that is just something we're going to have to set up later on. So for now, we'll just leave the saving logic inside of the inventory component. That way we're saving our... actually, we won't leave it in here. We'll just delete that, reset the widget, and we'll just say save inventory in our AC inventory. So we will save inventory. And again, we'll be changing this later on to save all inventory values. That way we're saving our inventory and our equipment. But for now, since we don't have equipment, it can just be save all inventory. And that's all we need to do for drop item. We're going to pull out of here. We're going to say drop item. And now when I click that button, it should drop the item. And that should be all we need to do here. Let's go ahead and check it out and see if it's working. So I press I, my inventory comes up, and we can see all the stuff I have. That's great. But we're not actually seeing the amount of the item that we have. And I kind of want to see that. Since we're appending EX here to the item itself, let's just go ahead and make this one over here the amount of the item that we have. So I'm going to go into my widget inventory, and we are going to change this text block to item amount. Or you could do this probably inside of the inventory tile if you really wanted to. So we could come into inventory tile, and where we have this text block here for the name, where we're already appending EX, you could append X and then quantity. And now if we press play here and we press I, it's going to show that we have X 999 of all of these things, right? We have so many of all of these things. So when we inspect the item, we can see it in our inventory. We can see how many there are. We can see the enhancement level over here. And yeah, and we don't actually need that. So since we're doing all that inside the item tile, again, totally up to you how you decide to do this. But since I've decided here to do that all inside the item tile, I'm just going to delete that entirely. We no longer need it. It's no longer a thing. All of this is already happening when we set up the item tile. So we'll just get it out of here, right? We'll just get it out of here. That way we're a little bit cleaner. Now when I press I, and I inspect the item, it just comes up in the center. Nice and clean. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to discard all these items because I want to know, we're going to start troubleshooting in our crafting widget. So I'm going to discard all of these items, get a clear inventory. I'm going to keep my enhancement cores. And we're going to see what's going on, right? Why we're not dropping the items. So we only have enhancement cores. We're going to quit the inventory, escape the game, check our inventory to make sure, yes, we only have enhancement cores. And I am going to make sure that I grab the iron ore. 500 should be more than enough for what we need to do. So now when I press inventory, I have 500 iron ore. That's good, great. When I use my smithing bench, and we see available, it's going to say iron ingot. If I max that out, I can make 50. That makes sense, right? I have 500. It costs 10 iron ore, so I could make 50 of these. So we're going to go ahead and make 50. But I still have these 500 iron ore in my inventory, so something did not happen. Something did not happen. So maybe I forgot to put something together in craft item. So we are using craft item. We increase the experience successfully. We're going to make sure we print a log here. And this is just kind of basic troubleshooting stuff. I know we all, not message. We all mess up sometimes, so we're just going to print a bunch of event logs here at say row not found. To figure out why this is not removing the item from our inventory. So we know that it did find the row, right? Because it's adding the item to the inventory, so we don't actually need that. Control V here. We're going to say item removed. Or remove item called. Okay, I think I see what the potential issue is here. We're just going to come in here. That is the issue. We have this need equipment check as item to see if the item is equipped, and we just decided to pass true, but we actually need to pass false because that's coming in here. You could just pass both of these or not have the branch, but I do want that branch for later. So that is our problem. That is why when I crafted those items, they did not remove from the inventory. But hey, that works for me because I needed more iron ingots. So we'll go ahead and craft those. And yeah, that worked. We have 100 iron ingots in our inventory. So we should be able to craft our items now. Our iron helm, iron guards, iron swords, iron dagger. So we're going to make one iron sword. Go ahead and craft that. I'm just going to quit crafting again. We're going to make sure, yes, now we have 90. Yes, now we have the one sword. And now we're going to enhance that sword a couple of times. So we're going to enhance the sword once. We're going to enhance the sword twice. It's the sword a third time, but let's try to fail. Okay, we failed. Good. And that should have removed... Okay, remove the proper amount of enhancement cores, but not any of the iron ingots that were required. Right? Because we had 90, now we're enhancement level 4. So it should have removed 10 there. It did not remove 10 there. I'm getting the feeling we probably have the same type of issue. Right? The same type of issue probably. Because this might be an issue where we are breaking this up here and it's being reset to something different. So we'll get the item info out, we'll break the item info, and we'll make sure we're passing the item ID into this proper item ID instead of routing it all the way from there. And that might work. So I'm going to say core removed, and for each of these we should be printing out this message. This is removing X amount of Y. Max that out. Removing 10 too. Yep, so just as I thought, for some reason, I'm not entirely sure why that was happening. But with our enhancements not pulling the required amount of or required items to craft, it was just because the item ID here coming out of the inventory content was somehow not passing itself all the way through to this get items required to craft. So in our enhance item, we're just going to get the item info and break it open and pass that item ID straight in to this, and that should work for you. And sometimes with this stuff, you just kind of have to troubleshoot it out and figure out where you flubbed, because everybody flubs sometimes. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments section, and I hope you enjoyed the video. To recap, in this video we made the inventory component that just kind of shows our current inventory. In the next episode, we're actually going to move on to storage chests. So we're going to be making our storage chest actor, and we're going to be doing the all of the things inside of that need to be saved and transferred. If you're enjoying the videos so far, I urge you to join our Patreon. For just $3 a month, you'll get access to all of the videos in this series as soon as I create them. Always available on Patreon, always free, and ready to go. You'll also get a copy of the example project so you can follow along step by step with a real visual guide in the project.